Have you ever wondered if the sound of your success is actually the sound of your failure? It's a strange question, I know, but today we're talking about augers, ice, and that age-old question, does drilling a dozen holes in one spot actually help you catch more fish? Or are you just throwing a rock concert for every walleye in a 100-yard radius? I promise by the end of this video, you'll look at your auger in a completely different way. You'll understand the one critical mistake that turns a promising spot into a dead zone before you even get a line wet. We're going to uncover why your buddy who drills one hole and sits quietly often outfishes, the guy who turns the ice into Swiss cheese. So, what do you think right now before we even start? More holes, more chances, or more noise, no fish? Drop your gut feeling in the comments. Look, let's be honest. We all want to be efficient on the ice. Our time is limited. The sun goes down early, the bite window can be painfully short, and nobody wants to go home empty-handed. So the idea of drilling a whole bunch of holes to quickly cover a piece of structure or map out a weed edge makes perfect sense on the surface. The old-timers taught many of us, you can't catch 'em if your line ain't near 'em. From that perspective, drilling more holes seems like simple, undeniable math. More holes means a better chance of dropping your jig right on a fish's nose. It's a habit born from good intentions. It feels proactive, doesn't it? You feel like you're working the spot, like you're earning your catch. We often confuse that kind of frantic activity with real productivity. For years, this has been the go-to move when the bite slows down. But does it actually work? Or is it just a tradition we've never really stopped to question with the tools and knowledge we have today? All right, let's kick this off by tackling the biggest, loudest elephant in the room, the noise. We've become so accustomed to the sound of our augers that we forget just how violent and alien it is to the world underneath the ice. I want you to try a little thought experiment with me. Picture yourself at home. Maybe it's a quiet Sunday morning. You're relaxed, peaceful. Suddenly, without any warning, a helicopter tries to land on your roof. The windows are rattling, the whole house is shaking, and the roar is deafening. Are you going to calmly go about your day? Are you going to think, oh, I wonder if that means breakfast is ready? Absolutely not. Your first instinct is pure survival. Get out, hide, or freeze in terror. That, in a nutshell, is the experience we are giving fish every single time we fire up a gas-powered auger just a few feet above their heads. It's not just a background hum, it's a seismic event in their environment, and we need to start treating it with that level of respect if we want to catch the fish that are smart enough to have survived these events before. Now you might be thinking, hold on, water muffles sound. And you're right, to a certain extent it does. High-frequency sounds don't travel very far, but that's not the kind of sound an auger makes. An auger, especially a gas one, produces a low-frequency rumble, and low-frequency sound waves travel incredibly well through water. More importantly, water is a fantastic conductor of vibration. Think of it like this. The ice acts like a giant drum skin stretched over the lake. When you run your auger, you're not just drilling a hole, you're beating that drum. That vibration travels out in all directions, and fish pick it up through their lateral line. This isn't them just hearing a noise, it's them feeling a threat in their very bodies. It's a physical sensation that their instincts tell them is unnatural and dangerous. So while the sound might seem muffled to us up in the air, it's a full-body alarm for everything swimming below. Let's put this into a practical, on-the-ice perspective. You get to your spot, you pull the cord, and you drill one hole. Vroom, grind, splash. It's a brief, loud interruption. Sure, any fish directly underneath might get startled and dart away, but fish that are 10, 20, or 30 feet away just register a temporary disturbance. In many cases, they'll settle back down within a few minutes, and their curiosity might even bring them back to investigate. Now let's contrast that with the Swiss cheese approach. You drill the first hole, then a second and a third, all within a few feet of each other. You keep this up for 5-10 minutes, drilling 12 holes in a tight grid. That is no longer a brief interruption. From the fish's point of view, that is a sustained, escalating attack on their home. You've created a localized earthquake.
You're not giving them a chance to settle down. You're actively and continuously telling them that this small area is the most dangerous place on the entire lake.
Now, let's play devil's advocate and talk about a counter-argument I hear all the time. But I need to drill a lot of holes to find the edge of the weed line, or I'm trying to map out a subtle drop-off. This is the classic covering structure argument, and on paper it makes a lot of sense. You know the fish are relating to a specific piece of underwater terrain, and you want to drop your lure on that exact X marks the spot location. You can't do that without drilling holes to see what's down there, right? The intention is 100% correct. You are trying to be precise, you are trying to understand the underwater landscape to increase your chances. The goal is admirable, and it comes from a place of wanting to be a better, more effective angler. The problem isn't with the why, it's with the how. The method we use to achieve that goal is often deeply flawed. But here is the fundamental flaw in that covering structure logic. By the time you have drilled your 10 or 12 holes in a tight pattern to perfectly find that sweet spot, you have very likely pushed every single fish off that exact spot you were trying so hard to locate. It's a perfect example of winning the battle but losing the war. You've successfully mapped the terrain, but you've cleared it of all inhabitants in the process. Imagine you're a deer hunter trying to find the best spot in a thicket. You wouldn't do it by marching through the middle of it, snapping every twig and shouting, "Are there any big bucks in here?" You'd scout from a distance, be quiet, and plan your approach. Fishing is no different. You might pinpoint the weed edge to the inch, but it's a hollow victory if the only thing left to see it is your lure. This brings us directly to the single greatest tool for solving this dilemma: modern electronics. Your flasher, your sonar, your underwater camera, these are your stealth scouting tools. A smart angler in the modern age leverages this technology to do the noisy work silently. The new strategy looks like this. You walk out to the general area you want to fish, and you drill one test hole, just one. Then you drop your transducer in and you quietly look. You can see the depth, you can see the weeds, you can see if there are fish. You can learn more in 2 minutes of silent electronic searching than you can in 10 minutes of loud, disruptive drilling. You use the machine to find the spot, and then you use the auger to access it. Not the other way around. Let the electronics do the searching so your auger only has to do the opening. Now, a critical factor that many anglers overlook is that not all fish are created equal when it comes to their tolerance for a disturbance. You absolutely must consider the specific species you are targeting because their reactions will be worlds apart. Let's take a big old wary walleye, for example, a fish that's survived multiple seasons, seen every lure imaginable, and felt the vibration of countless augers and snowmobiles. This fish is the equivalent of a combat veteran. It didn't get to be 28 inches long by being curious about loud noises from above. Its entire existence is predicated on associating unusual, loud vibrations with imminent danger. On the other end of the spectrum, you might have a school of hyper-aggressive half-pound yellow perch. They're competitive, and sometimes a little commotion can actually get them fired up. But here is the crucial question you have to ask yourself. Are you on the ice to fill a bucket with dinks, or are you hunting for that trophy? Because the very tactic that might stir up the small fish is almost guaranteed to send that monster walleye ghosting into the deepest water it can find. Let's dig a little deeper into this species-specific reaction. Perch and crappie, especially when they are in large competitive schools, can sometimes be a little more forgiving of noise. In some situations, particularly in stained water, the vibration from drilling can actually draw in smaller, curious fish to see what's going on. They might mistake the disturbance for feeding activity from other fish. But notice the key words there. Sometimes smaller fish. It is not a reliable strategy. And even within those schools, who do you think is the first to leave when the noise gets too intense? It's the biggest, oldest, wisest fish in the school. The big slab crappies and the jumbo perch. They are the survivors. They have the most experience with danger. So while turning the ice into a cheese grater might bring in a flurry of activity from the small, dumb ones, you are actively filtering out the very fish you probably came for in the first place. You are selecting for the least desirable catch. Let's consider the physical impact of drilling, an element that goes beyond just the sound. It's the pressure wave. When your auger blade breaks through that last inch or two of ice, it's not a gentle process. It violently shoves a column of water, ice shavings, and air downward. This creates a powerful concussive force, a pressure wave that radiates out from the hole. To us, it's just the satisfying conclusion of drilling. To a fish sitting directly below, it's the equivalent of a small depth charge going off. It's a physical shock to their system. Now, imagine subjecting them to that concussive blast not once, but a dozen times in rapid succession. Even if the fish wasn't scared by the noise of the engine, this repeated physical assault is more than enough to send it fleeing. It is a direct, tangible attack on their immediate environment, and no creature is going to stick around for that. And then there's the element of light. We don't often think about it, but the world under the ice, especially with snow cover, is a dim, dark, and consistent environment. Fish are perfectly adapted to this low-light condition. Their eyes are sensitive, and they use the shadows of weeds and structure for cover and for ambushing prey. Now here you come on a bright, sunny day. When you drill a hole, you are punching a brilliant, focused shaft of light into their dark world. It's like someone suddenly shining a spotlight in a dark movie theater. It's jarring. One hole is a minor annoyance. But when you drill 12 holes, you've essentially installed a dozen high-intensity skylights over their living room. This sudden and dramatic change in light can be just as spooky as the noise, particularly in water that's 15 feet deep or less. You've taken away their cover and exposed them, making them feel vulnerable and forcing them to retreat to deeper, darker water. So with all that said, does it mean you should never, ever drill more than one hole? No, that's not the takeaway here. That's not practical. The key is not to stop drilling, but to start drilling with a strategy. The superior alternative to the Swiss cheese method is what I like to call strategic separation. It's about getting the benefits of multiple holes, covering structure and giving yourself options, without concentrating the negative impacts in one tiny, traumatized zone. It requires you to think before you pull the cord. You need to have a plan for the entire spot before you make your first cut. Instead of a tight grid, you think in terms of a wider, more spread out pattern. This simple shift in thinking from concentrated chaos to distributed effort can make all the difference. Here is a practical, real-world example of what strategic separation looks like. Now let's say your electronics show a nice weed line that runs for about 50 yards. The old method would be to pick one promising-looking section and drill 10 holes in a 10-foot circle right on top of it. And the new method is to drill maybe 5 or 6 holes in total, but you space them 30 feet apart along that entire 50-yard stretch, one near the inside edge, one on the outside edge, a few on top. You're still getting all the information you need. You're still able to fish all the different parts of the structure, but critically, the noise and vibration from drilling each hole is far enough away from the others that you're not completely blowing out the entire spot. You're creating several small disturbances instead of one massive, continuous one. This next step is just as important as the drilling pattern itself. After you drill this wider, strategic pattern of holes, you must give the area time to cool down. You've still made a racket, even if it was more spread out. So don't just drill your last hole and immediately drop a line in. The fish need a moment. This is where patience pays off. Go back to your sled, grab a coffee from your thermos, change out a lure, talk to your buddy. Let everything settle for at least 10 and preferably 15 minutes. This quiet period allows any fish that was spooked by the commotion to calm their nerves. It gives them a chance to forget the danger, and often their curiosity will lead them to drift back into the area to see what all the fuss was about. By waiting, you're not fishing a scared spot, you're fishing a resettled spot. This drill and wait tactic also sets you up perfectly for the highly effective technique of hole hopping. Once your widely spaced holes are drilled and the area has settled, you can now move between them with total stealth. You can fish one hole for 10 minutes, and if you don't get a bite or mark a fish, you don't have to start up that noisy auger again. You just quietly get up, walk 30 feet to the next hole, and drop your line in. You are effectively fishing multiple different spots, but with the total noise impact of only one initial drilling session. This is how you stay mobile and search for active fish without constantly resetting the panic button. You did the loud work once at the very beginning, and now you get to reap the benefits with a quiet, methodical approach for the rest of the day. Now we need to take a moment to debunk a stubborn myth that I still hear on the ice from time to time. It's the idea that the noise actually attracts fish. The theory, as it's usually explained, is that the sound and vibration can mimic the sounds of other fish feeding, and this triggers a competitive response that draws curious fish in to investigate. Now, can I say this has never, ever happened? No. I'm sure somewhere, at some time, a hyper-aggressive fish has charged in towards the sound of an auger, but to rely on that as a strategy is like relying on winning the lottery for your retirement plan. For 99.9% of the fish out there, especially the ones you want to catch, a loud, grinding engine from above is a universal signal for danger. It is the dinner bell telling them to run away, not the dinner bell telling them to come and eat. It's also worth noting that the specific type of auger you use can make a significant difference in how much you're spooking the fish. There's a clear hierarchy of stealth here. At the bottom of the list, the worst offender by far is the old, smoky, two-stroke gas auger. It's loud, it vibrates like crazy, and it's everything fish hate. A step up from that would be a modern four-stroke or a propane auger. They run cleaner and are generally a bit quieter and smoother. But the real game changer in recent years has been the rise of high-quality electric augers. They are dramatically quieter, with almost no vibration felt through the ice. The sound of the blades cutting is often louder than the motor itself. Using an electric auger already puts you several steps ahead of the guy with the gas engine, as you're minimizing the two biggest factors, noise and vibration, that send fish packing. And if you truly want to be a ghost on the ice, if you want to achieve the absolute maximum level of stealth, you go back to the basics, a good, sharp hand auger. Now, I know what you're thinking, and no, I'm not suggesting you hand drill through 3 feet of ice. But for early ice, or in situations where you're fishing in 15 feet of water or less, a hand auger is often the single best tool for the job. It is virtually silent. The only thing the fish hear is the faint slicing of the blades. It keeps you warm from the effort. And most importantly, it forces you to be incredibly deliberate. When you have to manually crank out every single hole, you stop thinking about drilling 12 of them. You focus on drilling 2 or 3 perfect ones. It completely changes your mindset from one of brute force to one of precision and stealth. Think about a scenario we have all witnessed on the ice. You show up to a popular community spot. There's one guy who seems to be in a frantic hurry. He's running around with his gas auger wide open, drilling 20 or 30 holes in a huge area, making a massive commotion. He fishes for 30 minutes, gets frustrated, and then packs up and moves to another spot to repeat the process, complaining that the fish aren't biting. Meanwhile, over in the corner, there's an old-timer who quietly drilled 2 holes by hand when he arrived. He's been sitting on his bucket, patient and still, and he's steadily icing fish after fish. We've all seen this play out. It's not luck. It's a fundamental difference in approach. One angler is announcing his presence with an air horn, while the other is sneaking in the back door. And finally, let's address the desperation part of the original question, because I think it's psychologically very true. Frantically drilling more and more holes is almost always a sign that a fisherman is panicking. Their initial plan isn't working, and instead of trusting their knowledge and having patience, they resort to noisy, frantic activity. They are substituting raw effort for actual skill and observation. It's a desperate Hail Mary pass. And while the fish obviously can't read your mind and know that you're feeling desperate, they are incredibly attuned to the results of that desperation. They feel the constant vibration. They see the flashes of light, and they sense the chaos. Your panic translates directly into environmental signals that tell every fish in the area to stay far, far away. So, what's the final verdict on the Swiss cheese method? Is it a genius tactic or a desperate mistake? Based on everything we know about fish behavior, sound transmission in water, and the effectiveness of modern electronics, it is overwhelmingly a mistake. It is a low percentage play that is far more likely to harm your chances than to help them. You are trading the very small possibility of landing your lure directly on a single, non-spooked fish's head for the very high probability of scaring away every single quality fish in the entire vicinity. It's a tactic born from a bygone era before we had the quiet tools and the detailed underwater eyes of sonar. In the modern age of ice fishing, less noise is almost always more fish. So, to wrap it all up, the long-standing idea that drilling more holes directly equals more fish is, for the most part, a myth we need to leave behind. The concentrated noise, the intense vibration, the pressure waves, the sudden bursts of light, it all works against you, especially when you're targeting those bigger, smarter fish that we're all after. The real aha moment here, the big turning point, is realizing that your auger isn't just a tool for making a hole. It's a tool that can either attract or, more likely, repel fish. The minute you start treating it with the same respect for stealth that a hunter treats his footsteps, your success will skyrocket. The biggest shift in your ice fishing will come when you start thinking more like a quiet hunter and less like a loud construction worker. This changes your entire approach. Instead of rushing to drill, you'll slow down. You'll trust your electronics. You'll plan your holes with purpose. You'll be quieter, more deliberate, and I absolutely guarantee you will see a massive difference in the quality of your catch. Thanks so much for sticking with me on this one. I hope it gave you something to think about next time you're on the hard water. If you learned something today, do me a favor and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more content that cuts through the noise. Now I really want to hear from you. What's the biggest ice fishing lie you were ever told? Let's get a good discussion going in the comments below. Stay safe out there and tight lines.